It is 7:30 in the morning in Oslo, Norway. The temperature outside is minus 12 degrees Celsius. The wind moves through the birch trees, snow sits on every branch, and the children are already outside. Not for 5 minutes, not for a quick recess before class. All day. This is a barnehage, a Norwegian kindergarten, and by law, children here spend up to 6 hours outdoors every single day. Rain, snow, minus 20, it doesn't matter. There is a saying Norwegian parents teach their children before they can walk: there is no bad weather, only bad clothing. Meet Ingrid. She is 32 years old. She lives in Oslo with her 5-year-old son, Lars. Every morning, she drops Lars at barnehage, and every morning, Lars runs outside before Ingrid even finishes saying goodbye. Here is what researchers noticed when they began studying children like Lars. They were not just healthier than children raised indoors. They were calmer, more focused, more emotionally resilient, and the effect was not small. After just 20 minutes outside, cortisol levels, the body's primary stress hormone, dropped by 34%. So the question is not, why do Norwegian parents send their children outside in freezing temperatures? The real question is, why aren't we all doing this? Before we go further, let's be clear about something important. This is not about the cold. Norwegian parents are not trying to toughen their children through discomfort. They are following something much older and much deeper. It is called Friluftsliv, pronounced Friluftsliv. It translates literally to open-air living. And it is not a parenting technique. It is a philosophy, one that has shaped Norwegian culture for over 150 years. The idea is simple. Human beings, especially young human beings, are not designed to live indoors. Their nervous systems are calibrated for nature, for open space, for uneven ground, for wind on their faces. And when we remove children from that environment, when we place them behind screens, inside climate-controlled classrooms, in managed, scheduled, supervised rooms, we do not protect them. We deprive them. Ingrid learned this not from a book. She learned it from watching Lars. On rainy weekends when they stayed home, Lars was more irritable, more reactive, harder to settle at night. On the days he came home from barnehage, after 6 hours in the snow, he was quiet, focused, ready. She didn't fully understand why. Science did. In the 1980s, researchers at the University of Michigan began studying what happens to the brain in natural environments. They identified something they called attention restoration theory. Here is the core idea. The brain has 2 attention systems. The first is directed attention, the kind we use for screens, for instructions, for tasks. It gets exhausted. The second is involuntary attention, the kind that activates when we watch clouds move, walk through trees, or feel rain on our hands. It restores. When children spend time in nature, they are not simply playing. Their directed attention systems are resting. And when those systems rest, something measurable happens. Focus sharpens, impulse control improves, emotional regulation strengthens. In 2021, a study published in Frontiers in Psychology followed 1,200 children across 7 countries over 3 years. Children who spent 3 or more hours outdoors daily showed 2.4 times better emotional regulation than children who spent under 1 hour outside. Not slightly better, not marginally better, more than double. Norway didn't wait for that study. They already knew. Let's talk about what chronic stress actually does to a child's developing brain. When a child is overwhelmed by noise, by demands, by overstimulation, the brain releases cortisol. In small doses, cortisol is normal. It helps the body respond to challenge. But in large, sustained amounts, cortisol is destructive. Research in pediatric neuroscience links chronically elevated cortisol in early childhood to attention difficulties, disrupted sleep, heightened anxiety, and long-term changes in how the brain processes threat. This is not speculation. This is established science. Now here is what nature does. A 2019 study in the Journal of Environmental Psychology measured cortisol levels in children before and after unstructured outdoor sessions, in natural settings. After 20 minutes, just 20 minutes, cortisol dropped by an average of 34%. Not exercise on a treadmill, not a quiet activity indoors, unstructured time, outside, in natural space. The researchers called this the Cortisol Reset. In Oslo's barnehage system, this reset happens multiple times a day. Every time Lars runs through snow, builds a stick shelter, or watches his breath form clouds in the cold air, his nervous system is being recalibrated. Stress hormones are clearing, calm is being restored. Not because an adult told him to calm down, because his biology responded to the environment it was designed for. In 2009, two researchers at the University of Illinois, Francis Kuo and Andrea Faber-Taylor, published a study that changed how scientists think about children and attention. They studied children diagnosed with ADHD. They found that 20 minutes of walking in a park, not medication, not therapy, just walking in a green outdoor environment, produced attention improvements equivalent to a standard dose of Ritalin. The finding was significant enough that they ran the study twice. Same result. What this tells us is not that medication is wrong. What this tells us is that nature is not optional. For children who are already struggling with focus and regulation, outdoor time is not a nice extra. It is a biological intervention. And for all children, those we call typical and those we don't, regular access to unstructured outdoor time is the single most underused tool for calm, focused, emotionally regulated development. Norwegian children average 3 to 4 hours outdoors per day. American children average 35 minutes. That is not a lifestyle difference. That is a developmental gap. There is a third layer to what Friluftsliv does, and this one may be the most important. Unstructured outdoor play builds what developmental psychologists call the emotional regulation circuit. When Lars climbs a tree at barnehage and feels the branch shift beneath him, his amygdala activates. His heart rate spikes. And then, because he is in control of his own risk, he regulates. He grips tighter. He breathes. He decides to climb higher or climb down. That microcycle, activation, regulation, decision, happens dozens of times a day for Norwegian children. Each repetition is a workout for the prefrontal cortex, the region of the brain responsible for impulse control, emotional modulation, long-term thinking. Manicured playgrounds with rubber surfaces do not provide this. Screens do not provide this. Supervised, structured indoor activities do not provide this. Nature, with its unpredictability, its physicality, its genuine low-level risk, provides exactly this. A 2022 meta-analysis of 31 studies in the European Journal of Developmental Psychology confirmed that children with regular access to risky outdoor play showed significantly greater emotional resilience, higher frustration tolerance, and lower rates of anxiety by age. 8. Not despite the risk, because of it. You don't live in Oslo, your child doesn't attend a Norwegian barnehage, and your winters may not involve snow. But Friluftsliv is not geography, it is a principle, and the research tells us exactly how to apply it anywhere. Here are 3 shifts, what we call the Friluftsliv Formula. No special equipment, no curriculum, no cost. Shift 1. 1 hour of unstructured outdoor time daily. Not a scheduled sport, not a supervised activity, not a nature class. Unstructured, outdoors, daily. Even 30 minutes produces measurable changes in cortisol levels. At 1 hour, emotional regulation gains become consistent across age groups. Start with what you have: a backyard, a nearby park, a trail you can walk from your front door. The only instruction to your child: go outside. You don't need to do anything. That absence of agenda, that freedom, is the intervention. Shift 2. Wait 3 seconds before you redirect outdoor risk. When your child climbs something that makes you nervous, Count to 3 before you intervene. In those 3 seconds, observe. Are they managing the challenge? Are they problem-solving in real time? The wobble, the uncertainty, the micro-challenge that makes your stomach tighten, that is the prefrontal cortex doing its most important developmental work. Norwegian educators are trained to step back further than most Western parents are comfortable with. The result, documented consistently across Scandinavian longitudinal studies, is children who trust their own bodies and self-regulate their own fear responses far more effectively by middle childhood. Shift 3. Go outside together without your phone. Ingrid makes one deliberate choice on weekend mornings. No phone, no agenda. She and Lars walk through whatever neighborhood they have. Research on parent-child co-regulation shows that when a child observes a calm, present adult in a natural environment, their own nervous system mirrors that state. It is not about forests, it is about presence, in open air, without the pull of a screen. 3 shifts, no special location required. The science is consistent on what follows. Norway has placed in the top 3 of the United Nations World Happiness Report for 12 consecutive years. Researchers who study Norwegian society point consistently to childhood as a foundational variable. Children who grow up with Friluftsliv, with embodied outdoor freedom, develop into adults with higher life satisfaction scores, lower rates of anxiety and depression, and stronger capacity for self-regulation under stress. This is not coincidence. When you give a child's nervous system what it was built for, open space, nature, unstructured movement, managed risk, and present companionship, you are not simply raising a calmer child. You are building a more resilient adult, and you are doing it during the most critical developmental window in a human life, the first 8 years. Ingrid knows this, not because she studied it, because every evening, when Lars comes home from barnehage, cheeks red, boots caked in snow, already calm before dinner, she sees it. Friluftsliv, at its core, has 3 elements that Norwegian parents practice without thinking. Unstructured outdoor time, permitted risk, shared presence in nature. One of these is always harder than the others. Which one feels hardest for you right now? Comment below. I'll reply to every single answer in the first 24 hours. And if you want to understand why Finnish children are also consistently among the calmest in the world, but for a completely different reason, watch this video next. The science will surprise you.